We get started. We're learning Maseches, Taanis, Daf Kaf. We're starting at the second of the middle width lines at Tanu Rabbanon. We have a lot of ground to cover. Mostly the whole Gemara Zagadata, a whole bunch of stories. Some of them are famous, the most famous of which would be Nachum Ish Gamzu. We'll spend some time today learning about him. You've heard about him? Good person. And we're going to be, it's a lot of lines, but we're going to be learning until 3 lines from the bottom of Chaf Aleph, Amud Aleph. And then on Shabbos, we'll learn the balance of Chaf Aleph and then learn Chaf Beis as well. I don't know how all of that's going to work, but whatever. Daf Yomi will be on the same day. The Siyum of Hashas will be on the same day. That part for sure is true. Says the Gemara 2 lines into the middle with lines on Chaf Amud Aleph. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught us Shlosha. That's a bad start. Let's get a little bit of a smoother palate. That's okay. Everybody knows me. It's fine. Tanu Rabbanan. Shlosha Nikdama. I've never edited one video ever, not one video, with all the gaffes, with all the. I've started, but then I don't put those on. Shlosha Nikdama Lehem Chama Ba'avuran. There are 3 for whom the sun was specifically asked to shine again. Moshe v'Yoshua ben Akdimun ben Gurion. Dishtaman Akdimun ben Gurion Gemara. That we saw the tradition yesterday. We saw the story with him and the Roman and the water and the silver that we saw yesterday. Yoshua Nami Krohi. He has a pasuk that says Dichsiv Ha'idam Hashemesh v'Yareach Amad. Good. Ela Moshe Minolan. 3 possible answers for Moshe. The first 2 are Gzera Shavas. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Asya Achel Achel. These 2 words are the common words. One from the story of Moshe, Ksiv Hacha Achel Teis Pachtecha, that he will instill his fear. And then by Yoshua it says Uchsiv Hasam Achel Godlecha, which is a reference to say for Yoshua, for whom the sun stood. And therefore, that is one possibility as to how we know that Moshe made the sun shine. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani Amar Asya Taste. We have a different Gzera Shava. Ksiv Hacha, the pasuk by Moshe reads Achel Teis Pachtecha. Ksiv Hasam B'Yom Teis Hashem Es Ha'emori. And that pasuk that we just read, B'Yom Teis Hashem Es Ha'emori, was in Sefer Yoshua as well. Third possible answer. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Asim Migufei Dekra. We don't need any pasuk. We have a pasuk in Dvarim. No Gzera Shava. Pasuk is by Moshe. Shirishmeun Shimacha V'Ragzu V'Chala Mipanecha. Emasai Ragzu V'Chala Mipanecha. When is it that people will have this fear, this trepidation from you, Moshe? B'Shasha Niktama Lo Chama Moshe. That's at a time when Moshe was able to bring out the sun when it otherwise should not have been out. Obviously, all miraculous. What does this do for our Jewish calendar? Did they get an extra amount of time to say Mincha that day? Okay, these are. I wouldn't quite call it Purim Torah. It's not Purim Torah. These are real shilas. But did the calendar go back to the way it should? Was night longer because sunset was later? I don't know. Just you have to look into the Meforshim. 2/3 of the way down at the 2 dots. We said that there was a scenario where there was one city that had rain in another city that did not. And we said that it was a klala for both. So now we're going to see a whole collection of psukim, some of which were familiar, which are familiar to us from Eicha and from other sad occurrences. Let's see what the Gemara says here. Both of them are negative. The city that got rain and the city that didn't get rain, because they're all interconnected. Yerushalayim was equated to a nida, to a woman who is set aside due to her menstrual state. It's actually a bracha. That pasuk is a bracha of a nida, because what is part and parcel of becoming a nida? Manida yesh laheter. There's a time when a nida will go to the mikveh and again be allowed to be with her husband. Af Yerushalayim yesh la takana. So too, there's going to be a time when Yerushalayim will be corrected as well, where we'll have a Beis Hamikdash. Beautiful. Hayisa ka'almana, famously, you can almost hear the sing song of the trup in our head of Hayisa ka'almana. Rabbi Yehuda livracha. This is also a bracha. Why? Because it's ke'almana, v'lo almana mamish. Ela ke'isha shahalach ba'ala l'medina sayam. It's like a woman whose husband went out of town for a long time. The daito lachzor Allah, and he plans on coming back. The same is true with Yerushalayim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is planning on bringing his Shekhinah back to Yerushalayim. And that is the second example. Here's another. I made it that you were going to be lowly, that you were going to be bizayon, that you were going to be made. What? Degraded? Yeah. Something like that. Disgraced, I think, is actually the word. My brain was chasing one. Ushvalim, and you'll be lowly as well. Rabbi Yehuda livracha. This is also a bracha. Why is it that when you're viewed so lowly in the crowd, why is that a bracha? Says the Gemara, they won't make you the heads of the river. The river, when people would cross the river, the bridge, that's when they would collect taxes. So this is kind of like code word for being a tax collector. Below Gizirifti, which is a some type of like police officer or legal enforcer. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu will hit the Jews like the reed moves in the water. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, livracha. This is also for a bracha. How so? What does the pasuk mean? That ne'eman and pitze ohev. It's better to have the injuries of the one who loves you than than to have the negative kiss of the one who hates you. So is it better to have a close friend be mean to you, or to have your enemy be nice to you? So says the Gemara, Tova klala shekila Achia Shiloni Yisrael. Better was the klala that Achia Shiloni gave to the Jewish people. Yoser mi bracha shebirchan Bilam Arasha. It was better than the bracha that Bilam gave. That's a really unbelievable thing. That's a pretty remarkable comment. Achia Shiloni kilalan bekaneh. First of the very long lines on Chaf Amud Aleph. Amar lehem liYisrael. What was the klala that Achia Shiloni gave to the Jews? That you should be hit as the reed moves through the water. We know that it's rooted, of course, in water. It's at the bottom of a seabed. And when it's cut, it regrows. It has a lot of roots. Even if it's all the winds in the world, the waters are moving very sharply. It doesn't actually move its roots. It just moves. The reeds will move in the direction of the water, and damim haruchos, when all the waters calm down, nothing's changed. That's the yid that we should be able to withstand the test of time. That's how we've always had this comparison to a reed, and we've seen this many times over and heard many drashas about this. But that was Achia Shiloni, his klala, which was actually a bracha. Aval, 6 lines from the bottom, Bilam Arasha, Birchan Be'eretz. He praised the Jews to be like a cedar tree, Shenemar Razim. And skipping the parentheses, says the Gemara 5 lines from the bottom on Chaf Amud Aleph, it's not sitting in a place that's sitting in water. It doesn't easily replace its branches when it's cut off. It doesn't have long roots. It doesn't move at all. Totally stiff. Doesn't move at all. But when you get a very, very strong southern wind, like a storm wind, then it can tear out the whole entire tree and you'll never be able to get it back. So that was the bracha that Bilam gave the Jews. That wasn't such a bracha. That's not such a bracha. So the bracha that Bilam gave was worse than the klala that Achia Shiloni gave. And furthermore, because of this comparison, as we will soon see in more detail, to use a reed, we were able to use that litol hemenu kulmus, that we're able to use that and shape it into a quill. Lichtov bo sefer Torah nevi muksuvim. We don't do that today. Today they use the feathers. They take a feather and the stem of the feather that's long, and they cut it at a particular angle, and they put a little cut right in the middle to absorb some of the ink, and that's how we write. But in theory, they could halachically have used a quill just like this. So 2 lines from the bottom, there's a story. Shabo Rabbi Elazar. I'm sorry. Tana Rabbanon. There you go. You're like 10 for 10, Vlad. Why do I always skip one half of the line? It's unbelievable. So do I. I've got 3 fingers sitting right here. Tana Rabbanon. Le'olam yehei adam rach kekanev al yehei kasha ke'eretz. And the extraction of this whole story was that we should be rach, we should be soft as is a kana, as is a reed, and we should not be kasha as is a cedar tree. So the story goes, Sheba Rabbi Elazar ben Reb Shimon mi Migdal Gedor mi Beis Rabba. He was learning from his Rebbe, and he came from the city of Migdal Gedor. Rachav al Chamor. He was riding on a donkey, Mitayal Asvas Nahar, and he was right at the edge of the river. V'sameach simcha gedola. He was so happy. And he had a shtickle gaiva Torah harbe, because he learned a lot of Torah. On the top of Chaf Amud Beis, nizdamin lo adam echad shahem mechuar beyoser. He came across in his path someone who was very unattractive. And if you take a look at Rashi, the first Rashi on Chaf Amud Beis, Dibur Maschel nizdamin lo adam, yesh svarim shekasu behen Eliyahu zachur latov. It's not appropriate that you should be such a Baal Gaiva. You should lower yourself. You're not so great. And we know from the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, when people are learning Torah and they feel so good, that's why we are here. We are here to refine our neshamas, and learning Torah is probably the single best way to do that. So Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu came to teach him a lesson. So the person who was mechuar, this person was very unattractive. Amar lo shalom alecha Rebbe. He saw him and he said, "Hello, shalom aleichem," v'lo hechzer lo, and he didn't respond. Amar lo reka, you empty one. Kama mechuar oso haish. Wow, this person is very, very unappealing. Shema kol b'nei ircha mechuarin kamoscha. Is everyone in your neighborhood as ugly as you are? Very right. Amar lo eni yodea. I'm not sure. Ela lech ve'amor leuman she'asani. Why don't you go to the person who made me and say, Kama mechura kli zeh she'asisa? Ooh. So that's a good response. And immediately he realized that he was being tested. Once Rabbi Lazar noticed that he had made an error, Yarad min hachamor, he got down from the animal he was riding, and he prostrated himself before this ish mechuar. Amar lo na'anesi lach, I afflicted you, mecholi, please forgive me. Amar lo, he says, Eini macholach ad shetelech l'uman she'asani, I'm not going to forgive you until you go to the one who made me and tell him, ve'amor lo, kama mechuar kli zeh she'asisa. So he kept chasing him until he finally got to his hometown. The people in town saw this chashuv a rub behind the less attractive guy. They said, wow, welcome, bruchim habayim, it's so great to have you in town. The ish mechuar said, Amar lahem, lemiatem karuyin, Rebbe, who are you calling such a chashuv yid? And they said, Amru lo, the guy behind you, he's a big Talmid Chacham, he's a posek, he's a dayan. Amar lahem, imzeh Rebbe al yarbu kamoscha b'Yisrael. Hashem should bench the world. There should not be more people like him. Amar lo mipnei ma, what happened? Amar lahem, kach v'kach asali, this is what he did to me. Amar lo afal pikein mecholi, even so, mecholo, you should still forgive him. She'adam gadol b'torahu. So it's such an interesting ma'isa. What about the halachos of lashon hara? What about the fact that you have someone who's viewed as a Talmid Chacham, who is willing to call someone an ish mechuar? Isn't that supposed to be one thing, that you're one entity, that you're so refined that you don't do those things? Okay, he has the Yetzer Hara. That's what it was. It must be. But the stories, the thing, he made a mistake. You want to hope that when you're the Gavri Rabbah, that you're not making these kinds of mistakes. You're reading the story. It's hard to read the story. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not doesn't sit well.
Because they always take these out of the Rebbe books.
Right?
So they're not used to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens. Right. Rebbes are still people.
I think so, yeah. What was that book called? The Making of a Gadol. Yeah. So Amar Lahem, the Ish Mechuar says to the people of the city, Bishvilchem hareni mochelo. Only because of you will I forgive him for what he did. It will vad shelo yehei ragil asos kain, first of the middle width lines, 1/3 of the way down, and then fine. Miyad, immediately they moved back into town. Nechnas Rabbi Elazar ben Reb Shimon v'darash, and he gave a drasha. What drasha did he give? La'olam yehei adam rachka kanev ayhei kasha ke'eres. And he says that that's how a person should behave. It's that you should be a rachka kanev and not stiff like an erez. Therefore, zacha. And therefore, because of this attribute of the kana, it was therefore able to be used to write a Sefer Torah. Lichtav was Sefer Torah, Tefillin umezuzos. A little bit of a different language, because here it says Torah, Tefillin umezuzos, and I believe previously it said Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. A little bit of a different. I don't know what the halachic differences are between those, but just picking it up on this now. I didn't notice it when I learned it. I just noticed it right now. But it seems a little different, and I don't know what the halachos are in regards to them. I don't think that there's actually a categorical difference halachically. I'm not sure. But it is interesting the Gemara does frame them to be a little differently. Almost halfway down at the two dots. If you have a city that has something terrible going on, as we pointed out, it's a certain number of people dying in a certain concentration of days, or buildings that are falling. So we said that you're Masriyan in the Mishnah. Let's learn what this means. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis teach us a brisa, and this brisa has some doubled language, some duplicative language. Mapolas sha'amru brios v'lo ru'os. When we talk about a mapolis, that a building fell, we're talking about a building that was brios. It was a healthy building and not a rickety building. And as well, she'enan ru'uyos lipo v'lo haru'uyos lipo. And another distinction is that one was not fit to fall, and the other is that it was fit to fall. So that's very strange. Hai nihu brios, hai nihu she'enan ru'uyos lipo. Aren't those the same exact languages? To say that they're healthy and that they're not ready to fall, and also as well on the flip side, hai nihu ru'uyos, hai nihu ru'uyos lipo, ru'uyos with an ayin. And also a weak wall and a wall that is ready to fall. Lotzricha says the Gemara, what case are we talking about this double language? Denaflu machmas govhaihu. It was built well, but it was very tall. So things that are very tall are more likely to fall. Yinami, or as well, the kaiman aguda denara, or it's built on the bank of a river where the ground is very saturated. And because the ground is very saturated, the building is more likely to fall. Now, we mitigated that by putting in our world, by putting in foundations that are made out of cement, that hopefully water will not erode. Sometimes our foundations crack a little bit. You get some water in your basement. Okay, but the way that they're made, the idea is that even if you lived on the bank of a river, they didn't build their houses that way, obviously. So that's what the Gemara says. Halfway down, 6 lines, 7 lines into the Y lines. There was a particular structure that was rickety in the city of Naharda. Rav Shmuel too said they would not go under it. Even though it had been standing for 12 years. Yom Echad, one day, Ikla Rav Ada bar Ava lahasam. Rav Ada bar Ava came to Nahardai, came to the city where they were. Amar le Shmuel le Rav, Nesi mar nakiv. Shmuel says to Rav, we should go the circuitous route. We should not take him under this bridge because it's a dangerous place to go. Amar le, Rav says back to Shmuel, lo tzrichna ha'idna. We don't need to go the circuitous route right now. De'ika Rav Ada bar Ava bahadan, because he's with us. The nafesh zechuse v'lo mistafina. He has a tremendous amount of zechuyos, and we have nothing to be afraid of. And then the Gemara continues. Rav Huna havale hahu chamra bahu besa re'ia ubay lefnuye. He had wine in his house, wine barrels in his house, but the house was rickety, and he wanted to go in there to take everything out. The problem is he didn't want to get crushed in the house. If he were to walk in there and the house would fall, the house was unstable. So what did he do? Clever guy. He gets into a conversation with Rav Ada bar Ava. I lay the Rav Ada bar Ava lahasam, and he brings Rav Ada bar Ava to the house where the barrels are. Mashche b'shmaisa ad depanye, and he sits there and talks and learning. Oh, tell me about the sugya. They're sitting and learning and hawking in the sugya for like 20 minutes as he brings barrel after barrel out of the house. Basar the nafak, after he brings out the last barrel and Rav Ada bar Ava walks out of the house, nafal besa, the whole house fell down because Rav Ada bar Ava was an ish zechuyos. He was able to hold these things off. Irgish Rav Ada bar Ava ikpid. Rav Ada bar Ava sensed what was going on. He looked back. He reverse engineered the whole thing. He's like, oh, you wanted to talk to me and learning while you happened to be taking barrels out of your house, and then the house fell. So obviously you're using me for my zechuyos. And why was he upset? Because a person should never lechatchila put themselves in a dangerous situation and say that I'm expecting a nace to happen. Shema einosin lo nace, because you can't always control everything. Nace, you can't be ein som chanal nace. V'im tim salom or osin lo nace. And even if you want to say that they do a miracle for special people, menachan lo mizachuyosav, they lower the number of his zechuyos. Amar Rav Chanan Ma'ikra. How do we know that this is true? Dechsiv, as the pasuk says. Katonti mikol hachasadim mikol ha'emet. I was waiting for someone to just like hit the laning, you know. Yeah, I was waiting. I paused. My hava uvde Rav Ada bar Ava. What made him, Mark? This was all on you.
I only know a guy. He knows the truck better than me.
By the way, you did the revi when you lamed this last time. Katonti. Was that you?
Yeah.
That was awesome. Right after Mark, it was great.
Brought down. I wouldn't make up the truck.
No. It's a machlokes, and I think the Minchas Shai quotes by the word katonti. Is it the Kadma ve'azla or is it the revi?
For the record, he told me to do it Azraela style, and then he changed
it. I believe that as well. Yeah, that's a true story. This camera needs to face both ways. We need a yeah. So anyways, what were the milas of Rav Ada bar Ava? Let's see how many of the milas of Rav Ada bar Ava do we have. So Kihad de Itmar, as it was stated, Shalu Talmid of Rav Ada bar Ava b'maha arachta yamin. Yeah, I actually did read that before we got into this little debacle about Katonti. But anyways, I can read it again if you want.
10 for 11.
Yeah, 10 for 11. It says the Gemara, Amar lahem, miyomai lo hikpati b'soch beisi. Okay, I lost on that one. Never been strict in my house. V'lo tza'ati bifnei misha gadol mimeni. I've never stepped in front of someone who's greater than I am. V'lo hirharti b'mavuos hametunavos. I did not think about Torah in alleyways. Checkbox. I'm good at that one. That one I nailed. For sure violated that one. End of conversation. Let's see. I never was happy with my friend. Okay, I'm not a bad person. Okay. That's exactly what's going on about nicknames. He always called people by their proper names. Is it a gnai to call a person by their nickname? We've heard these things before. I've had like people who are always makbet to call their children by the double name, whatever their name is. So my name is Hillel Pinchas. So like nobody does that. Well, one or two people in the world do that. Fine. Rabbi Mushal calls me Hillel Pinchas every day. Rabbi Mushal, sitting in the base medrash over there. He does it all the time. Amar le Rava le Rafram bar Papa. Leimalan mar mehanim mili ma'al Yosef dehava avid Rav Huna. Tell me something awesome about Rav Huna. Amar le, we're about 12 lines or so from the bottom. Bian kuse lo dechirna. I didn't know him in his childhood. Vesivuse dechirna, but as an older person, I did know him. Dechol yom de'eva. Whenever it was very cloudy outside, we needed a new infrastructure built. They all should have learned Daf Chaf Amud Beis and Maseches Taanis. Habu mafkin le beguharka de dahava. He would be moved around the community in a special chair of his that was made out of gold. B'sayir lo lekulamata, and he would go around and he would take a look at the whole city. B'chol ashisa dehavas re'iasa, and anytime he would see a bridge or see anything that wasn't built well, have a sasirla. He would knock it down first. We don't need to have anything bad happen. Knock it down. Now, im shouldn't be im efshar limara. If it was something that could have been paid for by the owner, banila, then the owner would fix it. Ve'ilo efshar. But if it's something that the owners couldn't fund, banila ihumidite, then he would pay for it. That was on anytime it was cloudy outside. He knew the rain was coming. He didn't want people to get hurt. Okay, very, very caring person. And every Erev Shabbos, have a meshad or shlucha l'shuka. He would send a messenger to the shuk. Any leftovers, any leftover vegetables, he would buy them. But he'd throw them into the river. Why would he throw them into the river? But why don't you save them for anim? He says, well, if I do that, then then they're not going to take their money and go buy, and they're going to offset the market, because really they should be paying for food if they can. If they don't have any food, mamish fine, but they should come to the market. Why would you toss it in the river? At least give it to an animal. Why is it mamish bal tashchis? Says the Gemara, he holds, this is a din we've never seen in Shas, I don't believe, that we do not give food that belongs to a person to an animal. We don't do that. Below Lisbon eklal. So why are you buying it in the first place? Just leave it. Why would you do that? He says, if you don't buy it, then nimtes machshilin la'asid lavo, then you're going to mess up the demand in the market. Let's say you buy the last 5% of the market. If you don't buy the last 5% of the market, then the market's going to bring less next week, because we see that the demand was less. It's all supply and demand. So if you need 1,000 red peppers, then you should bring 1,000 red peppers. But if the last 5% never get sold, I'm going to only bring 950 red peppers. So that's what he was concerned about.
The Erev Shabbos bring down the price of the cut fruit. They don't have laws. So is that going against the Gemara's version?
No, I don't think so.
Instead of throwing it out, they're just selling it at half price or something?
That's a good idea. But what?
He would purchase it.
He would purchase it and throw it out. The
The
seller can still sell. That's fine. They can still sell. They're coming up with clever ways to sell. He was just being a nice person and going beyond the letter of the law. They can do whatever they want. They can sell it if they want. He was just saying, I'm going to make everybody's lives a little easier. I'll buy the last 5% of the vegetables and toss them in the river, because no one can eat them if they were not edible, whatever the case was. If he had some type of something that was for healing purposes, some type of medication. So he would fill up a container demaya with the liquid. The base, he'd hang it up on the hinge by his door. And he would say, "Call the boy, lese lishkal. Anyone who wants can come take it." He was able to leave it hanging at the door. I don't know what kind of medication it was, probably something herbal. Some say that it wasn't milsa de asusa. Milsa de shivsa. What's milsa de shivsa? Have a gum here. This is something to offset shivsa. Shivsa is one of the shadim. It's one of the shadim for when people don't wash netilas yadayim, according to some of the Rishonim here. He would put up a container of water right by his door. Anyone who didn't wash netilas yadayim called the tzarech leise b'lei odololi stakin. Everyone should wash their hands so that they don't get hurt. He have a karich rifta, when he would have a meal, have a pasach lebave, he would open up the bave, his door. V'amar kolman the tzarech leise b'leichol, similar to the language we have by Pesach. Anyone who needs to eat, feel free to come on in. Last line of Chaf Amud Beis. Amar Rava. Kulhu, of all of the features that you just mentioned about him, Matzina Mekaimna Levar Meha. I was able to do everything except the last one that Rav Huna did. I was able to do everything except for hosting people for meals. The lo Matzina Lemeba, that I couldn't do. Top of Chaf Aleph from an Aleph, Mishum Denefishe Bnei Chela de Mechuza, because there were so many soldiers in Mechuzah Machlokes. If this is speaking about soldiers or talking about something else, it's like the quartering act from 8th grade when we learned about the Constitution, where sometimes you're forced to house people. That's the Pasha language of the Gemara. Ilfa v'Rav Yochanan. Ilfa was a very early Amora, as was Rav Yochanan. Havu garsi be'oraisa. This is the big chakira about sitting in kolel, or about getting a job. That is the Gemara right here at the top of Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph. So they were learning Torah. They were extremely financially stressed. Amre, they said, Nekum v'nezel v'ne'avad iska. Let's get up and let's go do some work. We'll make a business. Unakaim benafshin, we can fulfill the pasuk. What does the pasuk say? The pasuk says, Efes kilo yevacha evyon, that there shouldn't be poor people, and we're poor people, so let's go make some money. Azlu, they went. Osve tuse guda re'iyah. They were sitting next to a wall that, unbeknownst to them, was a rickety, dangerous wall. Havu kakarche rifta, and they were having a meal. Asutre malache ashayis, there were two angels that were having a conversation, and unbelievably, Shame Rabbi Yochanan, he was able to hear the dialogue. The Amar Chad l'chavrei, one malach said to the other, Nishte alayu hai guda, let's make this wall fall on top of them, niktalinhu, and let's kill them. Shemanichen chaya olam haba, the oskin b'chaya shah, because they think that getting a job is better than sitting and learning, and they're being osek b'chaya shah. Amar le'idach, the other of the two malachi Ashari says back to his friend, to the other malach, Shavkinu, leave them alone. There is one who will shine during this period of time, someone who's going to be very successful. Rabbi Yochanan Shama Ilfalo Shama. Rabbi Yochanan could hear them talking. This is like out of a sci-fi movie. Rabbi Yochanan was able to hear them talking, but not Ilfa. So Amarle, Rabbi Yochanan Ilfa, Shama Marmidi, did you hear somebody talking? Did you hear anything? Amarle, he says, I didn't hear anybody talking. So then he said to himself, Amar Rabbi Yochanan said to himself, the Shama Anav Ilfalo Shama, the fact that I'm able to hear these malachim and Ilfa is not, Shma Mina Lididi Kaimeli Shaita. Now I know that the Eibishter is saying that this is my time to shine. So he said, Amar Le, Rabbi Yochanan says back to Ilfa, Ihadar, I'm going back, I'm going to fulfill a different pasuk, Ki lo yechdal evyon mikerav aretz, that there will always be poor people, and he chose the poor man's life. That was Rabbi Yochanan's choice. Rabbi Yochanan Hadar, he went back, Ilfa lo Hadar, Ilfa went out and went, he went into business. Fine. By the time Ilfa came back to town, Malach Rabbi Yochanan had already become in charge. He was now the Rosh Yeshiva. Okay. So Amrulo, they said to him, had you, Ilfa, come back, there would have been no chance that Rabbi Yochanan would have become the Rosh Yeshiva. You're a better learner than he was. But okay, just is what it is. But you didn't come back, so he became in charge. So Rabbi Yochanan is now the Rosh Yeshiva. Azal, and he was so broken. Tala nafshe bi-iskaria desfinta, and he positioned himself at the top of the mast of a ship. Amar, he said, if anybody asks me a Mishnah from Rav Chia or from Rav Oshaya, below Pashtina mimas nisan, and I can't find its match from that brisa to a Mishnah, nefilna mi-iskaria desfinta, I will fall from the mast of the boat, the tavana, and I will drown. Asa Usaba, last of the short lines, on Daf Chaf Aleph, Amud Aleph, halfway down. So there was an older gentleman, Tanale, he says in regards to a Yerusha, HaOmer, if a person says before he dies that when he dies, the Yerusha should be Tnu Shekel Lebanai B'Shabbos, they should get money every week, and really a shekel is not enough, they really should be getting more money, it should be a sela. So then we don't listen to the specificity of his shekel request, we say a sela is also fine, Nosnin Lehem Sela. But if his language was flipped around, Im Amar, Al Titnu Lehem Ela Shekel, a very specific language about shekel, then a Nosnin Lehem Ela Shekel, then their weekly allowance is only going to be a shekel. Im Amar Mesu Yarshu, that he says that if his children were to die, and therefore they're no longer Yorshim, then Yorshu Acherim Tachtem, that the next generation could be the Yorshim. So then Bein Sha'amar Tnu, Bein Sha'amar Al Titnu, whether or not he said shekel loosely or shekel with specificity, so then Ein Nostan Lehem Ela Shekel, fine, that's what the Gemara says. So that the Gemara presents this case as he's standing up on the mast. Wait a minute, I have a brisa. This brisa about the person who the Yerusha and the shekel. So he answered the question. Ilfa was standing at the top of the mast. Amar lehamani. That's Reb Meir. I know what I'm talking about. To Amar mitzvah lekayim divrei hametz. End of the story. Also a very unique story. What's with the boat? Why is he standing up on the mast? Why is he threatening to jump off of the mast? That's not allowed. And drown himself. Why is the old guy throwing this of all Mishnahs? Or no, he may have given him a layup. We don't know. We don't know what he did. He may have given him a Mishnah. Oh, yeah, Hilchos Yerusha. Everybody knows Hilchos Yerusha. I don't know what he gave him because I don't know what. It's Ilfa. Remember, he's a great time. He says Chavrusa was Rav Yochanan. It wasn't a slouch. So the whole thing is really very, very strange stories. All of these kinds of stories in Shas are multi-layered, very deep, lots of Torah, and we don't have any time, and I don't know what it's talking about. I have to learn it. I don't know what it is. So I'm just going to tell you that it's deep. I know it's deep. I just don't know what it is. All right, let's talk about Nachum Ish Gamzu. We are 3 lines into the wide line. Says the Gemara, an amazing story. Amar Alav al Nachum Ish Gamzu, said about Nachum Ish Gamzu, that was his name. Shahayasuma Mishtei Einav, he was blind in both eyes. Gidei Mishtei Yada, both of his hands had been amputated. Kitea Mishtei Ragla, both of his legs had been cut off, and as well, just for the final Makeh Bepatish V'chol Gufo Malei Shchin, his body was covered in boils. Not the best scenario to be in. Vayamutal b'bayis ra'ua, and he lived in a house that was rickety. It was not a stable house. V'raglei hamita munachim b'sapalin shalmayim, and the feet of his bed were actually placed in little buckets of water, kedei shelo ya'alu alav nemalim, so that no ants could get up there. Why? Because he didn't have hands to brush them off. So it was like a little protective measure to make sure it's fine. Okay, good. Pamachas. One time, Bikshu Talmid of Lefanos Mitaso, they wanted to take his bed out. Ve'achar kach Lefanos es kela. They were going to move him to a new apartment. They were going to clean out his house, whatever they were doing. They wanted to first take out the bed, followed by taking out the kalim. But Nachum Ish Gamzu corrected them 6 lines into the wide lines, 2/3 of the way down. Amar lahem bonai penuas hakelim achar kach penuas mitasi. You guys first are going to take out the kalim and then come get me, who is lying in my bed. Shemuvtach lachem, I can guarantee you, kolzman she'ani babayis, for as long as I'm in my house, which meant on the bed because he couldn't walk. Ein habayis nofel, this house is not going anywhere. So they listened. Pinu es hakelim achar kach pinu es mitzaso, immediately v'nofel habayis. So they saw that he was a big tzaddik from this story, that he was able to guarantee that the house would not fall for as long as he was in it. Says the Gemara, Amr lo Talmid of Rebbe, I don't understand. If you're so righteous, if you're so close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lama also lach kach. Why is it that things are so bad for you? You're a quadruple amputee, you're blind, and you have boils everywhere in your body. Amar lahem, banai, ani garamti le'atzmi. I caused this to myself. There was once a time I was going to my in-laws' house, to my father-in-law. And I had with me masui gimel chamor. I had 3 donkeys laden with goods. One for food, one for drink, and one for sweets. There was one poor person, and he stood in the road. He said, please give me something to eat. Feed me, give me a little bit of a parnasa. I said, Amarti lo. And Nachum Ish Gamzu responded, Hamtain, just wait 1 second. I just have to unload the donkeys. I have to take them off, the packages off, so I can feed you. I didn't even have the opportunity to be lifrok min hachamor, to take everything down. So the person died. He passed away. So he was distraught. Nachum Ish Gamzu halachti v'nafalti al panav. I went over to his body, at this mace, this person who just died. I fell onto his face. V'amarti, I said, Einai shelo chasu aleinecha, my eyes which didn't give enough chesed to you, yasumu, they should become blind. Yadai, my hands shelo chasu al yadecha, which were not thoughtful to what your hands needed, yiskadmu. And raglai, my legs shelo chasu al raglecha yiskatu, I should be amputated here as well. But still, he said it wasn't enough for me. V'lo radaiti, and my neshama was bouncing around inside. Ad shamarti kol gufi malishchin. The only way I was able to feel better, to assuage my guilt for having been part of the cause of this person's death, was to be malishchin. What did he do wrong?
No, delayed giving tzedakah, but this is like.
Look at the words of the Gemara. Hold on, I need to unload the donkeys.
Right, he was even Zardes about it.
Doesn't say that.
No,
that might be the problem, but it doesn't say that. It just says that he said, wait until
But he didn't hold anything up, at least according to this, he didn't hold anything up. He said, hold on, I'm going to get it.
The Gemara seems bepashtus that he did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So that's why it's where they from here.
It's Rizus. That's Nachum Ish Gamzu, because had he realized the position in which the ani was in, maybe he would have worked faster, but he wasn't. That's what the Gemara seems to imply. Okay, I'm not answering. I'm just saying I'm raising a question because the Gemara bepashtus. What?
How do you put boils all over your body? Say I feel like I should do this. All right.
Should.
How
He
would one
didn't
go
put
about
them.
He has a
He
shot.
didn't put them.
that? Again, you cut your legs off, cut your arms off. Sure, we think about that all the time. How do we put boils on our body?
No, he didn't put them.
How did they just magically showed up?
It's not like you cut off one hand and then cut off the other. He said it should happen.
Because you can't, once you cut off one, you can't cut off the other.
Right. Once you start, you're gonna tip over.
You can cut off both legs if you still have your hand.
Right.
That's true. And one of your arms.
And one arm.
And one arm. And one arm.
Right.
That's true.
Okay.
This conversation is not as halachic as I was anticipating. So
You weren't able to give more tzedakah, make it equal. Like it's like it almost seems I don't want to say it almost seems like selfish he's doing this, but he'd be healthy, he'd be so much more productive citizen. He gave over more, so
maybe.
So
this, I'm asking the question without an answer. I'm just saying, what did he do wrong? Because the Gemara B'Pashtus does not indicate what he did wrong. So the story continues. He asked for shchin. Amrulo, they said to him, Oy lanu, it's unfortunate for us sheri'inucha bekach, that we have to see you this way. He responds, no, 3/4 of the way down, halfway through the wide lines. Amar lahem, he said to them, Oy li im lo re'isuni bekach. I'd be in big trouble if you didn't see me this way.
Too much.
The answer is, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, right, our scroll is a little explanation.
You're going to just say that or you're going to read it?
He said that he
Mark
blamed
is
himself for
saying-
not looking close enough at the man
Yep.
to decide the situation, right? His Phil led him to dismount from his donkey, remove his sack, untie him. Instead, he should have.
I think the problem is calling a donkey a donkey.
Tore open his binding to get a piece of fruit for the dying man. Because of this delay, he caused the man's death. So nothing to create upon himself that his eyes had failed to observe should be blinded.
Right, the whole
The
Gemara.
legs should be cut off. He didn't jump
It
off.
still doesn't answer.
And his arms should be torn off.
So it's self-inflicted. It seems self-inflicted because if a Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give an onesh, let him give an onesh. He said, he paskined on himself what the onesh should be, and he asked for it. So that's all. It raises a good.
The students were shocked that they would get like all these different things. So he had the desire to be a perfect tzaddik, and he had a bear punishment for everyone who made these infractions. I
Okay,
can't
wait, make sure how cautious tzedakah is, but it's still.
Yep, it's a lot. V'amai karule Nachamish Gamzu. Why did he earn the name of Nachamish Gamzu? The Kol Milsa to have a salkale. Anything would have happened to him. Amar Gamzu Latova. And in fact, the Gemara tells a beautiful story to that end. Zimnachada Bo Lishtura Yisrael Doron Lebeit Kesar. The Jewish community wanted to send a gift to Caesar. Amru man Yezel. Who should be the one who brings it? Yezel Nachamish Gamzu de Melumad Benisimhu. He should do it because he's
Prior to this.
prior. He's a regular as it relates to miracles. Prior to his self-inflicted consequence, presumably. So Shadru biyade, it says they put it in his hands. So I'm being medayek because he has hands. Is that not a good to you? Strong to you?
Yeah.
Shadru biyade male sifta de avanim tovos umargalios. They had a chest, a container that was filled with expensive stones, with diamonds and rubies. Azal bas be'ahudir, and he ended up staying in someone's house. The Lila at night, Kamu Hanach Diurai, the people who were his hosts, Vishaklinhu Lisifte, they took the chest, Umalunhu Afra, and with an equal weight, they filled it with dirt. Kimata Hasam, the next day when he got to the Caesar, Sharinhu, they opened up Lisifta, and Chazanhu Demalu Afra, they saw that it was filled with dirt. And the king was furious. Bo Malka, the Miktalinhu Lakulu, he wanted to kill everyone in the entourage. He didn't, what is this? You're bringing me a whole chest filled with dirt. Amar, Kamechaychu Be Yehudai. Are the Jews mocking me? Are they laughing at me? This is what they bring me as a gift. So Amar, he said under his breath, Nachum said, Gamzu Latova. Immediately, Asa Eliyahu comes on the scene. Ad milei kechad minayu, and he seemed to be like one of Caesar's soldiers. He looked like one of them. Amar le, the soldier, in quotes, Eliyahu, he says to the Caesar, Dilmaha afra me afra de Avram avuhonhu. Maybe this is dirt that is dirt from the times of Avram Avinu. Dichi havashah de afra. When he would throw up the dirt, habu saifa, it becomes swords. Gili, when he throws up the stones, habu giri, they become arrows. Dichsibi tenki afar charbo kekash nitav kashto. So he says maybe that's the case, and maybe that's really what the gift is. Maybe the bag of powder, the chest of powder, is really this very special powerful gift from the times of Avram. So they tested it. Havia, there was one Chada Medinta, they weren't able to conquer it. So Bad Kumine, the Chivshua, they tested it. They took the dirt up, they threw it in the air, and miraculously, it turned into swords and it turned into arrows, and they took over the city. Ailu the Begenze, they went into their storage house. Umaluhu lisifte avanim tovos umargala. Look at the Hashgacha Pratis, back to where he started. Those people stole from him a chest full of rubies and diamonds, and then the gift that he got from the Caesar was rubies and diamonds. Bishadru biyikra Rabba, and he was sent out with an entourage of the Caesars, his own, to show how chashav of a person Nachum Ish Gamzu was. Kiyasu Bey, so we went back to the same house where he was staying on the way there, Be'ahudi, same place. Amrulei, my Isis Bahadach the Abdi Lach Yikra Kulehai. Why did they send all of the chashav people from the government to walk you back? You seem to be so chashav in their eyes. I know what I did. I sent you with dirt. How is it that you're coming back with all the chashivas of the malchus? Amar lehu, my deshakli mehacha amti lahasam. Whatever I took from here, I gave over there. I didn't know any different. I didn't look inside. So this family's like, Givaldik, that worked? Okay. Sasur l'diraihu, they knocked down their house. Ve'amtinhu lebei malka, they crushed it all up and they brought it to the king. Amrulei, we've got more of the same magic powder that Nachum gave you. Hayafra, the Isi Hachamididanu, same exact location, same house, same shovels, same exact source. It's all perfect. Take it. But Kuha, they checked it. Below Ashkechu, and they were not able to affect the same results as when Nachum was involved. V'kadlinhu lahanach diurai, and these people were killed. That is the story of Nachum Ish Gamzu. We'll pick up right here, Mirza Hashem, on Shabbos, 3 lines from the bottom. Seems. Wishing you all a beautiful night.